Indeed, indeed. The guy from last night was right. So yeah, this one's gonna be a little bit more chill, guys. You can, it'll be a minute, but we will be joined by Nick 17, or aka T Nick Tewell. So you can get in on the discussion as well. But definitely, yeah, I want to see your reactions, guys. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Was this overdue? Was this the right timing? Was this something that maybe threw you off guard? Or were you saying, hey, this is something that's needed to be done, didn't need to be done? I want to hear them. I want to hear what you guys have to say. But ultimately, right now, this is the breaking news, and Ronny Deila is out as the head coach of Atlanta United. And Garth Lagerwey has mentioned that it is not good enough. He mentioned that it was evident that our standard of play was not met this season, and that together with our senior leadership team, we have decided that it was in Atlanta United's best interest to move the team in a different direction. Ultimately, we owe our fans a much better on-field product, and it is our unwavering commitment to provide that to this community as soon as possible. We want to thank Ronny for his time and commitment to the organization and wish him well in his future endeavors. And yeah, he had a 6-18-13 record across all competitions, including Leagues Cup, of course. We didn't play in the U.S. Open Cup this season. But yeah, and they noted in their press release that they will hold its annual end of the season press conference later this week at the training grounds. This comes on the heels of also Arthur Blank's message to the fans before the last game to essentially kind of plead it almost kind of seems, to really try to placate the fans, make sure that they know that they're trying to do everything that they can, quote unquote. There are some people that are also calling for Garth Lagerwey's head, even in this tumultuous part of his life. They say that he is as culpable as anybody else. It's definitely interesting. LA United took their time with this, as they are wont to do lately, but it is just incredible that it's just a very much another lost season, and for us to be able to, or have to be able to endure this as a fan base that comes out in droves, I don't think it's deserved. It's long been past where we're spoiled fans, like Frank de Boer mentioned that we were. It is to a level where the expectations and the results need to match. But yeah, let's get Nick in here and we will discuss together. But we have Infield FC saying Rob might be our guy. Rob Valentino, I mean, yeah, I think divides opinion a little bit. He is obviously, a Ted Lasso kind of acolyte in a sense, where the passion, the ability to motivate the players is something. Tactically, he didn't really have that much time. He had about half a season, but yeah, it's a question mark whether he's fully ready. But he still is in Georgia, and coaching the U.S. Youth National Team. Chris J says, so who is a possible replacement? Thoughts? We will discuss that later in this episode or in this video for sure. So don't think we're going to skip past that. We definitely will talk about that. This is more about Dila being out, and then we will discuss the possibilities. Emmanuel Gaspar says, didn't think it was going to be this fast. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely they needed to. This level of expediency, efficiency has not been the norm. It's been a thing that if they want to get more renewals for season ticket holders, or even prospective new season ticket holders, they needed to move fast. And this is where the day after the last match of the season, they had to. It only made sense. But yeah, here we go. Let's see, let me get him in here. He didn't hear it, so. But yeah, so what else we got? We got Devin in the chat saying this team has been a shell of itself since 2019 and an absolute joker of a front office. I mean, I think you're not wrong, but it is absolutely. I'm not really sure it's completely on the front office. I mean, the owner has let some of this happen. As good of an owner as Arthur Blank is, there still is an aspect of it that he is not absolved of fault. I mean, he hired these people. So if you're looking at everything as far as say an outside source, like say the Bobs in Office Space, well, that's absolutely something you need to look at as well. But let's bring in Nick. He's in here. Welcome with the fittingly
long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see. Just a little under 12 hours, but yeah, fitting that you're wearing the King Peach hat. The last time you really had good success. But
well, I mean, I don't wake up with my hair looking like yours does, so I had to have a quick fix here. But we did what we could.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, this is actually bedhead. So I don't know. It's people call me Lego head, and probably fair. It's probably fair.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that's really funny, actually.
Yeah, but yeah, man.
So
it happened, just like we're talking about. What are your immediate thoughts?
Yeah.
Of it actually happening?
Not surprised. Not like you can't even say like, oh, not surprised, but shocked or anything like that. Like, you won 5 games all year. Haven't won a home game since May 28th. That was my line. I said a bunch last night, and we're going to keep going with that because now we're not going to win a home game till February or March. And we do deserve better. Absolutely, we do. We, as someone who didn't miss a single game this year at home and went to all the Leagues Cup, went to preseason, went to Charlotte, like, we deserve better. We deserve a better team to watch. And I've been digging into some numbers. I'll have a written piece up on the Patreon at some point today, just as I can throughout the day. And was digging into this as I was aiming to not watch Tottenham Hotspur blow their lead. And some of these numbers are fascinating. I mean, we know about the terrible win-loss record, but they scored 38 goals in 34 games. 38. That's like just over 1 goal a game. That's crazy.
How many did we concede?
2 years ago? 63.
Yeah.
That's almost 2 goals a game. 63 goals in 34 games. That's just the league. That's not all comps or anything. But, we did also lose 2 games in Leagues Cups. That number goes up if we wanted to include that. And 2 years ago, we were complaining about Gonzo's team that scored almost 70 goals. It did score 70 goals if you count the playoffs. We were complaining about that team. And now, here we are, 29th out of 30.
Well, that's the thing,
God, I just think back.
It's like...
wouldn't we die for that team,
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I would die for that team, but I would, sure, like to see more of that than this. But that doesn't mean it was good. It was still absolute shambles.
Well, it wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect, but we at least felt like we had some sort of a direction. Like going from 22, the injury year, we were like, okay, this is our year. And it wasn't perfect, but they're an Almada red card away from finishing in the top 4. If they don't draw Columbus in that series, on the road team with only 1 home game, who knows what happens, Like that's where we need to be at a minimum. And the fact that we've been there once in half a decade, kind of says a lot.
Yeah, and it really is. The front office culpable. There is and there are people that are saying that Garth Lagerwey should be held accountable as well, whether that's
Mhm.
losing his job. What are your thoughts on those sentiments?
I would say that Darren got to pick 4 head coaches, and this is about to be Garth's second head coach. I don't think elevating Rod to interim really counts because the decision was to not keep him. I don't think that one really counts to me. So if you're talking about permanent head coaches, this is only about to be number 2 that Garth has chosen. 'Cause he inherited Gonzo and stuck with him for quite a while. I would say that accountability doesn't have to mean someone losing their job. I would also say that putting Garth's life situation to the side, he has never chosen a head coach before, and no one's going to be perfect at something that they have not done before. That is maybe an unrealistic expectation, although maybe not, considering Garth's track record as an executive in this league. But I think if this happens again, going into like next year, we're here with insert coach to be named later, and we fire him again after 26, and we're out of the playoffs again. That is more of a wholesale organizational failure to me, because Garth chose a head coach, like I said, for the first time in his life this time after 25 years as an exec in this league, and that's hard to do. You never know how it's going to go. You never really know what the person's going to be like till you're in the door working with them. And from everything everyone has said about Ronnie as a person, as a character, like there's no issues. Of course, it's not like a Heinze situation, but something just didn't click. And chopping and changing so many people does not solve as many problems as maybe I would say some folks think it does.
Yeah, I mean it's the
So
easy
I think that's
way
kind of
out.
where I'm at with that.
Yeah, it's definitely the
It
easy way
is.
out, and it's the way that actually how you placate fans because yeah, there's no other way to send that message that okay, we're serious, we're actually going
Mhm.
to make the changes that will propel the team forward. But let's really, I think, analyze as well what Dila was doing here. Yes, he, from the lineage of what we know. So
Mhm.
about, before he took the Alwada job, before their season started, likely was when we were talking to him. So roughly about July, maybe August. And so, we didn't hire him. Obviously, we were taking our time, quote unquote. And if that actually was the case, well, maybe we were waiting on Dila. Whether that is
Mhm.
the truth or not, he was hired before Chris Henderson was hired. Chris Henderson was still with Inter Miami. Obviously, there were talks before he was announced. So there is a little
Mhm.
bit of maybe the Venn diagram is there a little bit, but
Mhm.
it's ultimately there is not a lot of time for him as far as getting his players in, getting a preseason where he has Emmanuel Latelat in the side, more than 2 preseason games. And Miggy
Mhm.
also joined a little late too, not fully integrated in that sense, I
Not
think.
fully.
And
Um, Al Wayada hired Ronnie Deila on July 5th,
July 5th.
2024.
Yeah. Okay. So
So yeah,
even earlier.
if they parted ways with Gonzo early June, they were probably talking at some point in between then. You're 100% right there. I
Right.
just wanted to get a full day on that.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for the clarification on which month that what actually was. But
Yeah, of
um,
course.
and so it's this too. It's yes, he wasn't fully integrated, but let's be real too. He had international windows that we weren't playing in that you can still figure out how to get this team to gel. And that's what we were saying early on
Mhm.
in the season. Oh man, when this team can gel, when they can figure out, within the first 10 games, it's going to be really good because Latelat was firing. Miggy, Saba were running partners for him and, creating for him to a degree or wanting to. But
Mhm.
ultimately, it just really fell off the wagon. And, those the saying of rocket till the wheels fall off, the wheels completely fell off. We were Flintstoning it, and it's
And
yeah,
and
go ahead.
one win in your last 18 games proves that.
Yeah, that's more
And
than half a season
that's half
for
the season
MLS.
more.
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, and it's outrageous.
Crazy.
Yeah, and so the way that the Athletic kind of posited that as like one win in the last 18, definitely paints it in a picture that sure, absolutely, it's
Mm-hmm.
not acceptable for any head coach of any club. So there is a right to dismiss somebody like that. The question that I continually have is this going to really be able to bring stability to Atlanta United, which is what we desperately crave, not only as the fans, but I'm sure the front office and Arthur Blank. Like he likely
Yeah.
didn't want to make this move, but the writing was
Well,
essentially on the wall.
and on that note, Ronnie did get the dreaded vote of confidence in like May or June, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
sometime we had that long break, the weird one in June, and then we only played like 2 games because of Miami and Club World Cup. Somewhere in there, I don't remember the exact date, but like Garth gave Doug like the vote of confidence for Ronnie and said like, yeah, we've only won 4 games, we're like right outside the playoffs, but we believe in this.
Mm-hmm.
To win one more game after that is crazy.
Yeah,
That is
and
insane.
right, and
Like
he got backed in the transfer window as well, bringing in Steven
he
Alzate
did.
and Niem Mahai, Juan Barracol as well. And so, it definitely helps solidify that defense, which, wasn't maybe as leaky against the lower division sides in the league. But ultimately, we didn't really win much still. And we're not able to create chances. It was evident in
Mm-hmm.
the DC match where we had, 10 shots? And against a
Yeah,
poor side,
something like that.
a poor DC United side. I mean, it shows you how exactly like
A DC
yeah,
a DC side that scored 30 goals all season too, by the way.
right,
30
exactly.
goals.
Yeah, and so and their
You can't
defense
keep
was
clean sheet
leaky
against
too.
those guys.
Right. And so it's just like it's unacceptable from that regard, and it shows that that game was very much, it was rightfully so, a draw because like there wasn't much between us. It's two very much underperforming sides. I haven't heard what DC is going to do, but I'm sure they're going to make some moves as well. But
Yeah, they did fire Troy Lesane in the summer, so that was they interimed it for the rest of the year.
yeah,
But who who knows?
yeah,
Honestly, with them, they just hired some. They hired a GM who was an agent and has never actually led a soccer team before. So I don't think what they're doing is real, to be honest. That's
right.
crazy.
And it's a far cry from kind of that's what's difficult, I think, for owners in the league, is that even when, because I think they have at least at one point the first female general manager, and yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's like you want to see that, but you also want to see them succeed because it's you want to see more diversity in the sport. But that's neither here nor there. I think for Atlanta United, do you think that Garth Lagerwey, with his life circumstances, played a part in Ronny Deila not being dismissed earlier on in the season?
Well, when Gonzo got fired, God, that was only a year and a half ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How much has happened in that time?
Yeah.
The when Garth did his media availability afterwards, something that he said kind of stuck with me about the process, about how the leadership group for Atlanta United met. And the head coach is usually on the leadership group,
Mm-hmm.
I would assume. And so the leadership group met, probably assumingly without him. And you got to assume that's Garth, that's Chris, that's probably Dave Tenney, probably Javier Perez, probably Skate, the business president, or I don't know her exact title, but probably those types of people all met, and then they made a recommendation to Arthur Blank, who accepts the recommendation, and that is probably the process that happened yesterday. And I would be really surprised if that process occurred without Garth, because Garth is the quote we got. I was expecting to see a quote from Chris Henderson, to be honest, even though Chris and Ronnie, well, were equals on the totem pole who reported to Garth.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the press release when they hired Ronnie and Chris, that they both report directly to Garth. So I was expecting to see Chris give the quote, and it was Garth. And so that does give me confidence that, Garth being back in a limited capacity is okay for his health, first and foremost. And secondly, that he is a part of the decision making, if not like the key decision maker. And that's what we want, right? Like he's the guy that was brought in to make those decisions. You want that guy, doing that. We don't need the aggregation of Chris and Demetrios and Skate and whoever else. Like you want it to be your leader that you've invested in. And I know that not a lot has gone right in Garth's tenure, but at the end of 2022, there was so much wrong. There was no infrastructure in the building. There was no like staff members for analytics or the academy, or all this stuff just wasn't built out because the club was still in startup mode, because that's how Darren ran it for 6 years. And just because the wins and losses have not come on the field, and don't get me wrong, the wins and losses have to come. If they don't come next year, like everyone's head is on the table. Every single person who works for this franchise's head is on the table if it doesn't come next year. But so much besides what happens on the field was wrong, that it has taken him that much time. And this was supposed to be it. This was supposed to be, I've got my GM, I've got my coach, I've got my this, I've got my that. And it just all fell apart. And I don't think you can just abandon that after one failed attempt.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fascinating in that respect, because looking at Garth Lagerwey, and we'll get back to Dila, I think, in a minute, but looking at Garth Lagerwey's history, with Seattle Sounders as well, with RSL, I mean, some of that, of course, is excellence in the job. Some of that also, the fact that he never really was able to hire a head coach, it's inheritance. It's a little bit, you are gifted a good situation that you don't have to make changes. And, the players that were already in the system for Seattle were already league beaters in that sense. And it makes it really difficult to actually justify in some senses that, like, is this actually the top guy in the league as regards to, what we were told? And, it's so far, unfortunately, there's signs that, maybe those, the inheritance, the luck maybe did have a larger part in play than we actually thought. And, it's unfortunate that is the case, because obviously we would have loved to like land the right hire on the first try, and ultimately, in a sense, we did with Eels, with Boca for the first 2.5 years in a sense, but it's it definitely makes it really, really difficult to say for a lot of fans, like, oh man, I have unwavering belief in the people in charge. So it's
and I don't
go ahead.
I don't think anyone should have unwavering belief right now. Like, I don't have unwavering belief right now, even though I usually am a Garth defender, and I'm especially a Chris defender, because he's even a bit newer than Garth. Really only had one transfer window to work. So if anybody is out there thinking like, man, we don't I'm not sure about this, I get it. I'm 100% there with you. I think it's the fire everybody mentality. I just don't have that, based on some real life circumstances, and I never want to celebrate someone getting fired, or like encourage like, hey, this is not working, for any other reason besides like insinuating that the job is not working, like, or insinuating that someone's not providing their best effort to make the job work. Like, that's not really who I am as a person either. So you're not going to get that out of me. And that's where, when we are talking about Garth and everything like that, like, that's where I'm not going to, that's kind of what I don't really have an understanding for, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
going back to Ronny. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to add a quick little, like, thing in
Please.
there, is like, where it's like, say, a high school or a college, The players that are there, that are underneath that head coach, if the head coach fails to bring them to the glory that the people that follow the team or whichever are expecting them to, do you get rid of all the players as well? Do you yeah, they're collegiate kids or high school kids. It's one of those things where like it just doesn't make sense to get rid of every single thing. There are broken pieces and there are misfits. There are mismatches in what works and doesn't work, but it's basically like we've been saying, it's the baby out with the bathwater. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like, okay, if it's this, it's like, okay, Spotify not exactly making a lot of friends right now, but yeah, are you saying, yeah, it's like, everybody that works at Spotify just needs the GTFO, right? It's like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it just doesn't make any sense from that regard. There's like the engineers that clearly are making it an incredible platform for a lot of people. There's just key decision makers and performances in that
Mhm.
regard where like, yeah, this is not it. Let's find somebody else to get us to and lead us to you know the right promised land, the right glory. But uh,
Yeah, that's a great point. And with especially a lot, I'm sure a lot of our listeners and our watchers are college football people. I'm a college football observer. Like I didn't go to a school with a huge football team or anything like that. So I'm an observer. Like I got friends that watch every team, happy to watch, but don't really have a team myself. So when I went to Georgia Tech a couple weekends ago and they played Virginia Tech, um, my friend was telling me, who's a big Tech fan, like, yeah, this is it. Like this is the year because we're going to graduate off Haynes King and we're going to graduate off all these seniors. We have some people ready to take the next step, but they're going to have to like develop these guys. And it's interesting to think about it from that lens because if you have like a bad crop of recruits or something like that, they eventually just graduate. I feel like college football coaches get such a long leash nowadays,
mhm.
and if you have a bad class of recruits and your team's not as good one year, maybe you go 6-5 instead of 9-3 like you were hoping to. It's like, oh well, we got to just recruit better. We got to get a better class in here next time, and then we don't have to play these guys, or they can transfer out with NIL money and all that stuff now.
Mhm.
But it is so much easier to either get rid of, like graduate off or transfer portal or whatever else, than it is an MLS. And if I was going to be concerned about something with Garth specifically, it would not be about hiring Ronnie and that it didn't work.
Mm.
Sometimes it just doesn't work, you know? Like the process of how they got to Ronny Deila, this is kind of what I wanted to think back to a little
Yeah.
bit. When they fired Gonzo, it took them a while.
Mhm.
But my guess is they were ready to hire a coach when we got eliminated from the playoffs. And then that didn't happen. Then they were ready to hire a coach when we would have gotten eliminated in Montreal, and that didn't happen.
Mhm.
And then we played 3 games against Miami, and then we're playing to the end of November. And who knows what sort of behind the scenes coaching candidates who came to Atlanta, who toured the facility. I mean, we know Patrick Vieira did, and then ended up taking the Genoa job. And
Mhm.
I was not a Patrick Vieira enjoyer personally, but we can argue about Patrick Vieira a different day. But
We will. Yeah.
as we move to future candidates too. But
Yeah.
once it was interesting to see, like, we don't know the timeline of everything going on behind the scenes right now,
Mhm.
or back then we didn't, and we don't right now either. But now we're not playing these playoff games. Now we are fully dedicated to who is this next person. And I would not be as concerned about that from Gar's perspective as I was looking at the roster to start the year and how good we thought it was, and then how it turned out. And I don't know how. I mean, I think we were all a little, love struck and awestruck by Miggy returning and everything, and then we played him out of position for a whole season and wondered why it wasn't great, and had 2 10s on the roster, and our other starting winger underperformed to hell and back, and that's what I would be more concerned about is how are we going to fix this roster.
Yeah.
And I know we're here to talk about Ronnie today, but that is what I am much more concerned about. We will have a coach,
Yeah.
and the coach is probably going to be fine,
And like
but
the like Garth Lagerway even said, with the Pareto principle of 80-20, and that the coach is only 20% of the equation here. Yeah, that's a massive 80% that still needs to be addressed, in that these players underperformed, whether it was the coaching, whether they down-tooled, whether they just weren't good enough. And I think it's a a mixture of all of that. And it ultimately is that these players did not play up to their standards. Why is that? And what also needs to be evaluated is,
Right.
what is their standard? For some of these players,
Mhm.
they're not at a championship level. So keeping them is probably a little foolhardy to think that, okay, yeah, well, they weren't necessarily the problem, so yeah, we can keep them. Yeah, no, like those players still should be. But, which players showed, the underlying numbers that, okay, they were just very unlucky this season. A lot of things went wrong for them. But also, yes, availability is an ability, and some of these players were not able to stay on the pitch, and that really needs to be evaluated as well. And so, when you have pretty much 3/4 out of your back line mostly gone for most of the season, or at least the first third,
or not here till July,
right? It's tough. It's tough to evaluate that, but also, from that standpoint of, that's one of the check boxes. Can they be on the pitch? If not, we need to move them on. And yeah.
And what's so strange about that is the DPs were healthy the whole year. Yeah. I mean, sure, Latte his nagging injuries to end the year and all that, whatever. But the DPs were mostly healthy the whole year. Mm-hmm. The attackers were mostly healthy the whole year. Like, other than Jay Fortune, like Sleesh played 30-something games. Muyumba was in and out, but he wasn't really a starter anyways. Like, Alzate, Mihai, Barakal, once they came in, Hernandez, they were healthy the whole year. Mm-hmm. Like, other than Gregerson and, Amador was in and out, but he wasn't good when he was playing either. And then, other than Gregerson and Jay Fortune, yeah, I mean,
but he was penciled in as the starter, and
he was
missing for the for preseason. It was a lost year from the start, essentially, for him. And
the preseason argument doesn't. It did something for me until about the middle of May, and then I was like, okay, you've been playing for 2 months now. Like, let's figure this out. But
exactly.
That's a fair point too.
It's no excuse for the performance levels, but it also was like, we knew what we had in Lennon, and if you were relying on him to bail you out defensively, it was not going to be the case, and that's why Ronald Hernandez ultimately usurped him, because he was at least defensively a little bit more solid. But and what you were lacking going forward with Brooks Lennon. But let's read a little bit of the chat here. I think there's some interesting.
Oh yeah, let's do some comments. Sounds great.
But Mavery and his cuisine. What a name there. AJ, I haven't been here since halfway through the season, but I wanted to say goodbye for good. This club is a shit show. I'm embarrassed to admit how blind and incorrect I was in the past. Mavery out. So interesting. But you know what? I think I don't blame you in that respect. But it is the 10th year's right around the corner. I think they're going to do everything that they can in order to make this a success. And plus, in a World Cup year, there's going to be just a lot of hype, excitement, and all that. It's sad to see you go if you are really actually going to leave, but it is. I think, these are the moments that I think a lot of people are going to be watching very closely, seeing what the team does, and if there's, this is what happened last season, is that they, on paper, made the right moves, but it didn't pan out. And, let's contrast that, I think, Nick, with your reactions in December last year to now.
Yeah. God, we thought we were going to be on top of the world, weren't we? Like yesterday at the tailgate, Jennifer from 5 Takes, Jennifer and I were talking about how Jason Longshore on his one of his season preview podcasts, maybe AST, was talking about, this team doesn't make the conference finals this year. They made the quarterfinals last year with half a roster and half a DP on the field. Like, if they don't make the conference final this year, it's a failed season. And, that was us in February once the $22 million striker came in and our reunion happened. And you're looking around and you think, wow, this team on paper is great. And that is why I am more concerned about the roster build, is because they fooled everybody. National pundits, local media, folks like us who cover the team but not journalists, fans. They fooled all of us. And that's what's so concerning to me is like, I mean, sure, like the coach matters. Like, I think if this year has taught me anything, I think the coach matters more than I thought it did. But the roster matters so much more. There's still like every game I could think of a moment going back where I'm like, what's Ronny supposed to do? Well, what's he supposed to do? Like in the Miami game, Muyumba, his captain, hands the ball to Messi at the top of the arc after 35 minutes of a clean sheet and really nice defending, and they got up the field a couple times. Like, you just handed it to the GOAT. Like, what are we doing? And I think you got to get some higher soccer IQ in there, because I don't think any of our players are like stupid or anything. Like, you hear them speak, like they all sound like they know what they're talking about. They look like they make most of the right decisions on the field, but we just make some boneheaded mistakes, especially in the defensive side of the field. And I don't know how you fix that, but that's got to be something that they are looking at. And I'm sure they are. Like, if we're sitting here saying this, I am sure that they are in the boardroom, in the meeting room, the situation room, like saying these exact same things.
And I think that's the great point there, is that I was going to mention this earlier as well, and I'm glad you did. The errors on the pitch, like, that's not really exclusive to this season. This has been an issue with Gonzalo Pineda, exactly, with Rob Valentino as well. Like, those are, it's not the coach making these errors. Maybe it is a little bit of system where, okay, some of these players aren't afforded runners.
Maybe they're not in the place where they will succeed the best. Yeah, something like that.
Positionally,
that is coaching.
Yeah, positionally aware players is absolutely coaching. And, yes, absolutely, these players have failed to give options to each other. And that, in part, is why we only created 10 shots against one of the worst teams in the league. Yes, we are also one of the worst teams in the league, but if we were Columbus Crew, if we were Inter Miami against DC United, we would have slapped them. And I think that is the difference, is that, yes, you have world-class players on both of those teams. What precludes us from getting those type of world-class players? I mean, there is some sort of thing that is kind of broken in our recruiting as well, our scouting department.
Yes.
The fact that we've really gone away from a whole market in South America for whatever reason. But yes, it doesn't mean like, oh, well, we should go back completely to South America. It's like, no, like, let's find the best cultural fits with each other, like Europe does with a lot of their teams. But it's also what is really good about, I think, some of the European leagues is that, say, Germany, their league is a lot of German players. Like, French league, Ligue 1, is a lot of French players, but sprinkled in some other players from other countries. But largely, it is, one kind of just, I don't want to say homogenous, but yeah, there is at least a culture that's like, okay, easier to integrate. When we had South Americans, it was a lot easier. We had South Americans and Americans, essentially. It was, a few other people from everywhere else, but yeah, you had the English-speaking players, and then the players that could bridge the gap, like Greg Garza, like, those type of players. But in the Premier League, yes, you can be really multicultural, but it's because you have the best coaches there. And so those coaches have also figured out how to, coach at that level. And that requires, all the little X factors. And, you have, okay, this is where everybody drinks. you have the likes of Mikel Arteta, who is maligned for,
That's true when I need him.
yeah, bringing in a, basically the Air Force to figure out how to communicate better. That actually happened like, a year before or 2 years before, but, it came out afterward, blah, blah, blah. He was maligned for that, but he's looking for those little 1% to get better every single day. And that's what you want, I think, in an MLS head coach. But the difference is, obviously, if they get too good for this league, they will move on. And so it's like this kind of just like you want to find a certain level. And that's why, let's get to maybe some of the people that might be rumored for this,
some updates on this from Doug, actually. I was pulling up, Doug was doing an AMA on Twitter before we jumped on. So I wanted to see if there's any updates. There's some juicy stuff here. And if Doug is tweeting this, I'm assuming that he's okay with us saying this because it's on Twitter. So someone asked Doug, do you see any technical department changes this offseason other than the coaching staff? And I was interested to see that, Kenny Miller not mentioned, Matt Lowry, Carl Robinson, the goalkeeper coach. I forgot his name. But none of the coaching staff mentioned here other than Ronny Deila. And so I wonder, because originally Matt Lowry and Carl Robinson were not retained after they decided to not give Rob the job. And then when Ronny came in with only Kenny Miller, they were like, okay, guys, come back. Or maybe it was just their contracts were up. I'm not sure exactly how that was structured. But maybe they value Carl Robinson or Matt Lowry as maybe our new club guy. Like Rob was on the bench for every coach for a while. Maybe it's going to be one of those guys. So that's interesting. Doug's response was, I think all departments will be scrutinized and all departments will likely have changes. And you have to after a season like this with the money spent. I think that's a good thing to hear. Doug replied to someone else and said, this is just my opinion, not reporting, but I think most of the departments are going to get an overhaul. Good to hear. And I was talking in Discord a couple days ago about Chris Henderson's background as a scout. And like he was a scout in Seattle under Garth, then worked his way up to like the number 2 GM spot. Then he went to go be CSO in Miami, and then he came here, right? So he's a scout. After he was done being a player, he is a scout, and he's going to want to implement his own things his own way. So I think that will be really interesting to see how that goes.
And he has to, because it's that. It's like, if Garth Lagerwey doesn't give him those reins, then you're handcuffing your guy. And at that point, what's the point? He's just a puppet. So he has to allow him to do things how he wants to and delegate to him, essentially, maybe the things that he really wants. But other than that, be a little bit more hands off. And I don't know if that's in his capabilities. That's maybe also something that's maybe unspoken, that is kind of the thing where he had to essentially run, like he has his way. He's of course buddies with Chris, but it doesn't say that they're not different people and they have different ways of doing things, and they might butt heads sometimes, but ultimately the best ideas should win. And I don't know.
And it's also important to remember, Garth is not the CSO. He is the CEO. He's over everybody. Sporting, business, he does it all. He isn't like Chris is in charge of the roster. Chris is the CSO. And I think a lot of people's anger towards Garth sometimes gets misplaced. Other than when Boca was gone for about 2 months before Chris came in, Garth was not doing soccer decisions. He was not like in doing soccer ops. He stepped in until the hire took place.
Right.
But everyone who has been here since Carlos Bocanegra was the GM was not picked by Garth. It was picked by Carlos Bocanegra, for good or for bad. And some of those players, have been okay. And we don't have to go through all those now. Maybe that'll be a fun offseason show we could do. But one more to get to. We were talking about future candidates, and there was one I was not willing to hint at last night that I am now. I had heard last night that Tata was close to coming back. And Doug is substantiating by saying, whoever they hire, I think they will move very quickly. And from there, that person will give opinions on contracts. Then someone said, can we expect the new coach announced in this week's press conference? Doug said, Doug responds, there is not a press conference on the schedule for this week as of now, so I don't know. However, Mike and Jason went live on 92.9, and Jason said, we're going to hold off on any more like deep coverage, deep analysis until the press conference later in the week. So I'm assuming that there will be one eventually because, you know, we don't have playoff games or anything. So the end of season press conference will happen soon, I'm sure. Doug continues, but I do think it will be likely days rather than weeks unless the negotiations with whoever they decide just fall apart. And some other folks have kind of hinted at in some other spaces, like, yeah, it might be the guy that you were all thinking about. And that's who we're all thinking about.
Right. There is
you want to talk about Tata?
Yeah, there is that. And it's also, you know, you had Felipe Cardenas, who was heavily hinting that, even though, you know, Tata was kind of linked with LAFC, there is this link with Atlanta United. Now, these are all rumors, unsubstantiated, of course, in the sense that, you know, it's not official. There's no, we can't name the sources.
We're not reporting anything.
Exactly.
At all.
This is not us saying it, but it is definitely interesting that he is a name that might be, you know, might be the guy. And as far as Tata, it divides opinion, I think, as well, because obviously there is a nostalgic factor to it that with Miggy, it just, you know, maybe hasn't worked out exactly how we would want it to. It doesn't always work out like a storybook. It doesn't work out like a Disney movie. And, you know, the factors in a head coach wanting to come back, only really he and his family will know. But, you know, when he left, there was that rumor that his wife wasn't exactly enamored with Georgia. There, you know, was an aspect, though, that Tata absolutely revered when he was here. He got the keys to the city of Roswell, even. And so, you know, there was absolutely a clamoring for not only him to stay, but this aspect of like, man, wow, he's really putting us out there on the map globally, not only with his name, but the way he was able to propel us into success. And, you know, he has been large in part successful at most places that he's been, also maligned at most places that he's been, except for us, really. And so, you know, I wonder if that old chestnut might come out as well if the results don't turn into success. And so, you know, there's a tarnish of legacy to a degree, even though I'm of the ilk that it's like, say, sequels to movies, they may, like, some people are like, yeah, it may ruin the legacy of the entity, the product. You know, oh man, like the third Back to the Future is just it ruins the whole thing for me, and you know, I have a bad taste in my mouth, like someone might say. But that doesn't take away, for me anyway, the brilliance of the first two. You know, and Godfather the same way. You know, it's like, yeah, the third one maybe not as good, but like Godfather 1, absolutely fucking brilliant. So it's like, you know, and I'll rewatch that, and you know, it'll still be fine. Like, we still have our MLS Cups, we still have a star on our kit, so it's not something that it takes anything away. But I get it. I get it from that regard. Yeah.
Also, guess has one of these, regardless of what would happen. Exactly. Maybe he gets two. Maybe we stick with this one, but he still got the one.
Right. And so there is an aspect of it that I get it. Yeah. It's like, you know, does it, you know, tarnish? Well, maybe I'm not worried about the, you know, that.
I don't know if I'm worried about that at all.
Yeah.
Because like, other than Tata and Miggy, no one is the same. It's not Darren and Carlos in the front office. It's not Joseph Martinez and Julian Gressel and all those guys. Half that team's retired now. Like Guzan and Nagby walking out after this year. Like, half those guys aren't even around anymore. It's not like we're just going to rebuild this 2018 team. It is, we're going to build another team, hopefully, with him. And so I have a couple thoughts on the Tata thing too. Number one, I know if Tata had come in the door first, like last year, and then we were thinking about bringing Miggy back now, nobody would be complaining about either one. And here's why. Tata does not become a worse coach with age. He is not a worse coach in 2025, 2026 than he was when he was here. Mm-hmm. That's not how that works with a coach. Like, if anything, he might be a better coach, learning from his experiences in Mexico and Miami. And we know he left Miami to deal with a personal situation. Mm-hmm. So maybe all that's resolved now and he has nothing to think about but coaching. Maybe it'll be better.
Yeah.
It's not like, Miggy is coming back. Maybe he's a little bit less mobile. We got to see what he can do in the middle of next season, because I hope that that's what they do. If they don't, oh my God. Mm-hmm. But, different conversation for a different day.
Yep.
And second of all, I think, it's really important to note, like, go through what you would want in a coach. Like last year, we were looking for a coach with some familiarity with MLS and a history of winning. And so you got to Ronny with his on his MLS Cup, his days at Celtic, and his days in Norway. And I think that's great. I think that's fine. This coaching cycle is going to be very interesting because not a lot of the good teams have lost their coach this year. And, there's always one or two surprise ones. I heard some Cincinnati fans talking about Noonan in one of my channels I'm in, and I was shocked. I was like, you can drive him all the way down I-75 mm-hmm. right now if you're done with him. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that would happen or anything. But most of the, really solid MLS coaches or teams are very set right now. Mm-hmm. And if he's the best coach on the market, he's the best coach on the market.
Yep.
Like if he is the best one with MLS experience, with success in multiple leagues, all that sort of thing, like that's what it is. And I don't know that I would sit there and overthink it, to be honest. If Tata wants to come, Tata wants to come. Last thing on Tata real quick. I was surprised about the Tata to LAFC rumors, and I was even less surprised when Tom shot them down. Mm-hmm. John Thorrington is maybe the CSO with a resume that matches Garth at this point. Mm-hmm. And like Garth's pre-Atlanta days, at least. Mm-hmm. And if I was John Thorrington, I'm not giving any coach roster control. Mm-hmm. Tata wants roster control. And he had input. Him and Chris Henderson worked together for that. They built that 74-point Team Miami team we saw last year and defeated last year. But that was Chris and Tata. Like, Chris and Tata have done it together. I think that's a big deal for me. It's not going to be like when Bocanegra and Tata were butting heads at the training ground and they didn't get along and that sort of thing. That's not going to be what this is. Like, we have proof of concept that Tata and Chris can work together. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Is that aspect though, where there are misses in that, in the aspect where Chris Henderson and Tata, they bottled it, unfortunately, against us. But
I did.
And whether that is fully on Tata, fully on the roster with Messi as well, when you have the best player in the world ever, and that happened against mm-hmm. you, it's a pretty big embarrassment. That's likely a reason why he left, as far as Tata Martino. And so,
what are you going to do when you run into Brad Guzan? Am I right?
Right, exactly. So, in that way, it's like, we can pat ourselves on the back in that sense, but
exactly.
But does it kind of mar it a little bit? It kind of does. And with the Ronny Deila thing too, it's that where these little things, there were kinks in the armor. There were things that were like that provided pause mm-hmm. for his mm-hmm. hire. And so yes, there isn't a perfect hire, but I like what you're thinking.
No.
Yeah, like as far as going with the best available. And it's like when you do that, generally it's a little harder to do to fail. But there is this thing where the coaches that are available, that have coached in MLS, that know this league, and that it is not an easy league to coach in because of the travel, because of the idiosyncrasies, the ways that make it maddening for any head coach. But yes, Tata is one of those coaches that has become accustomed to it. Yes, the other candidates, if you will, potential rumors of say Ange Postecoglou, who just got fired, but I don't know if that's going to go over too well with LA United fans, when he was
Mhm.
in a spitting match, not spitting, but like, a basic argument in the tunnel with their owner for Nottingham Forest. It's like that.
That's a satire account. I
Yeah,
do have to make sure
yeah.
that we all know that, because that is like Marinakis left. Like the Athletic reported this later yesterday.
Mm,
Marinakis left the stadium after Chelsea went up 2-0. Like
mm,
one of his assistants fired Ange yesterday,
okay.
and like even although Marinakis is kind of an asshole, and we all know that,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
that was, and I just
Yeah, okay.
I
And
don't know.
if it's not true,
Yeah,
yeah, either way,
it
and hopefully
that's
it's
okay.
not.
Yeah, it still did not end well, and I don't know why Ange would go there knowing that they were a defensive team and then all that. But I like as much as I personally love Ange and will always love Ange, I do understand like yeah, they finished 17th last year. Like I watched that team week in and week out. I know, but
Yeah,
there's something with
defensively,
Ange
yeah,
about yes, that too.
that's a massive thing that needs to be solved. Like we said at the top, we had 60 some odd goals scored against us. That is the first problem to solve, because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't allow goals, you will be a lot harder to play, and that is the
That's true.
first thing that needs to be solved. But as far as Ange as well, 41 days in the job position there. Yeah, Frank de
Excellent.
Boer at something like 70 or whatever it was. Yeah, Atlanta
Yeah.
fans are not going to want that. So I think we can write off Postacoglu as the guy that will be
Probably
considered
not.
there.
And
From
honestly,
those
like
optics alone.
I would take that Spurs check and that Nottingham Forest check that I'm getting, dude. If I was him, and I would go sit on the beach for like a year. And I know that he loves coaching and wants to be in it and all that. Like,
Mhm.
dude, that must have been rough. Like, I feel bad for him.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
the only thing
but
I would say about Ant
don't really
is
feel that bad.
mentality monster,
Yeah.
and that is like we've been complaining about this team being weak for over half a decade, and that is the one thing that only makes me think about Ange a little bit, is like, if you can change Spursy and win a trophy with Spurs,
Mm-hmm.
you can do anything, dude,
Mm-hmm.
if you're given a chance. Well, because he wasn't really given a chance at Forest, but if you can fix Spursy, an MLS team might be child's play to you. But anyway,
It,
we can move on from Ange now
right.
if you want.
Well, I mean, I think that's really interesting that you brought that up in that sense that, yeah, if you could fix Spurs, then yeah, because it's Jose Mourinho couldn't, Antonio Conte couldn't. It's,
And,
yeah, those are some
and
of the
Nuno, who
best
fixed Nottingham
coaches ever.
Forest, couldn't fix Spurs.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And it's, it is just a thing where, unfortunately, we have become a coaching carousel, and now it's just a matter of which head coach is the best fit. Also, there's the people that are wanting Jim Curtin, and yeah, he has already
mm,
pretty much taken his name out of the hat, unless it's a incredible deal and
yeah,
situation for him, because he's trying to focus on his family. He was considered for the New England Revolution job, so he's probably not someone that he's already denied us anyway. So it's not really someone that I would think we want to
yeah.
go back to the well for. But
And I understand, like, if you want to make the call, sure, but he already talked with New England extensively this time, and I think Tom reported he wants some degree of roster control, and I would be much more inclined to give that to Tata than I would to Jim.
mm-hmm.
A, because Tata's done it, and B, Jim really hasn't done it. Like, Philly was really only good when Ernst Tanner showed up, and Jim was there and like shifted his coaching philosophy, and yes, coached the team. But
Mm-hmm.
Jim's teams were really good when he had a CSO above him
Mm-hmm.
with working with him.
Right,
So I
exactly.
think that's a big
and,
part of that
and
too.
I think that's something that really needs to be harped on, is that there is synergy between your head coach, your sporting director, and your CEO
Mhm.
to make sure that everyone can work together in a harmonious, as much as possible way. Uh, but I
Mhm.
like the Pat Noonan suggestion, if he's feeling unsettled, if
Yeah.
their front offices, and this is the thing, there everybody leaves. It's just the truth. And so you like, no one stays in their job forever, anybody,
Yeah.
but least of all head coaches. So Pat Noonan could be lured away in that sense. And yeah,
I
I think,
wonder.
yeah, I think there are aspects to his play style that I have questions about, but defensively you can't really dispute it. It's, yeah,
Oh no. And what I would what I would say is if Doug and some other folks are kind of telling us that they expect a coaching hire to be made quickly, well, that's good, A, because that means the club has been thinking about it and working on it and talking to people who are available. And B, that makes me think it is not something, or something, it is not someone who is currently employed somewhere, because, the playoffs start on Wednesday with the play-in games. And there's some really juicy first round matchups. Actually, it's kind of like the baseball playoffs this year with me for the Braves. Like, I had enough time to eulogize the Braves in my head that I could go watch playoff baseball and just enjoy it for what it is. But if Cincinnati loses that Columbus series, it's Cincinnati and Columbus are 2-7, which is wild. We got hell is real for 3 games. So,
and that's really what it is. It's like they would be smart to wait a little bit to see which names jostle up, at least for the playoffs to mostly conclude.
Yeah, and if they are not going to sign Tata this week, that's what they should do. They should kind of knock on some doors of coaches that are in the playoff. Like, I love Jesper Sorensen in Vancouver. What he did with that roster, like, that roster is mostly the same as it's been for years when they were finishing like 6th, 7th, 8th, okay, and then he turned them into a Champions League finalist. And they finished second in the West this year. They lost on the last day. They had to rotate some players out. They've had some injuries, but took them to 63 points. That's their best ever finish. Their 3rd straight Canadian Championship, Champions League final. Like, what I wouldn't do for someone like that. He plays great football. He made a lot of those individual players better this year, put them in spots to succeed. Like, Sebastian Berhalter became a national team player. Like, that sort of thing. If you're looking at other coaches around, I'm just scrolling around the standings right now where everybody finished yesterday. Probably no one else in the Western Conference. I mean, Mike Ibarra seems really settled in San Diego. LAFC is probably who we're competing with for head coaches. That's maybe why I would go ahead and just get Tata in so that LAFC can't tempt him anymore. But they might overthink that one. And, with John Thornton, we talked about that. But even in the Eastern Conference, like, BJ just got there pretty settled in Nashville. Sure, I don't think we're going to go the Dean Smith route, the kind of the defensive coach. That's not what we want to do. That's not who we are, or what we say we want to be, at least. So I think that's probably not going to be the way we go, and like the way Charlotte went. God, Mascherano's a disaster over there in Miami, isn't he?
I mean,
not him.
They knew this. I mean, it's like,
they did.
It essentially is, though. You have somebody that Messi respects, and that's really enough.
Exactly.
In that respect, but
but there's not really anyone within the league other than those couple guys we shouted out.
And so you keep your eyes on that a little bit probably, but obviously there's going to be some guys let go in Europe as well. But I think it's also you look for those up and comers, those guys that like Gonzalo Pineda, unfortunately, but maybe with slightly a little bit more experience in the sense that they have coached at some level and are looking for that kind of difference. And it's difficult, though, because there could be those type of names that no one's even thinking about. But
it could be,
it really comes down to, I think right now you have to get the most experience in. You have to go with the best available. And if Tata Martino is wanting to and willing, I mean, you have to do it. Michael Weiss says in the comments, what's up, Mike? Says,
hi, Mikey, Mike.
What's the reason Tata would want to come to this team? I mean, so what do you think?
I'll have to go back and look at the rumors about his family. I don't remember where those came from. Like, I remember hearing that. We've always talked about that, but I got to figure out where that came from. Because like that could be a reason. If his wife doesn't want to come or his family's not interested, he talked about in 2018 how he missed his family. He didn't get to go home a lot, and because it demands of the job.
And I don't think we need to, or we do need to, really make sure that he is here for some longevity, because he doesn't stay at jobs very long. He stays 2 years at most places. Maybe Mexico was the longest in that regard, but he was.
He did one cycle,
Right, and he was afforded a lot of flexibility, obviously, when you're a national team head coach.
And I think if you're gonna, I was saying this to someone in the Discord or on Twitter recently. I think if it's Tata, you got to ask him to sign the 3-year deal. You know, if he walks away after year 2, there's nothing you can do to stop him. He retires. He
Sure.
does whatever he's going to do. But I think you got to get him to sign the 3-year deal, not a 2+1 like last time. I think it's got to be a 3-year deal.
Yeah,
that's what they gave Ronny.
And it's going to be really, really interesting, like how that's going to satiate the fans, because I think the fans really want somebody in there for the long term. They're kind of really sick of the carousel, and I mean, it's just really tough to see it differently for I think a lot of the fans. But yeah, looking in the chat,
names from the chat.
Yeah,
we should talk about.
Yeah, so not a ton of names. Kind of the ones that we were talking about a little bit. Jurgen Klopp or Pep is just obviously ridiculous and jokes anyway. But I appreciate it, Andrew. And yeah, Tommy from Scarves and Spikes. Shout out to you, hanging out here. Oh, Coach Steve as well. What's up, buddy? He's the one who.
What up, dude?
He did mention that he's a career 2-year guy, so know what you're signing up for. Exactly. It is a bit of that. Yeah, Mike says it's obviously FDB, not Tata. But that's...
Maybe it's not Frank DeBoer. Maybe it's Ronald DeBoer, actually.
Oh, yeah, his twin. Yeah, exactly right. And let's see what else we have in here. Brian Baird, shout out to you. Sunday morning, ATL Fan TV. You know something is going down. Yeah, yep, exactly. Otherwise, we are enjoying our Sunday normally. But, you know, I think we're enjoying, you know, chatting about this for you guys. It's, you know, always a pleasure to be able to, you know, speak on this, you know, and have you guys, you know, chip in, comment in and all that. So thank you guys for doing that. I won't be able to read every single bit of the chat, but those of you that have commented, appreciate you very, very much. Let's see. Kyle says, does Tata give Almiron too much freedom at the expense of ELL if he were to do that? I mean, AJ, don't you think don't you think we would want to give Almiron a little bit more freedom in the middle? Not too much, obviously, but maybe that's something we need to see a little more of. Yeah, I think it's an aspect where yesterday, at least when we were really going for it, he was linking up with Saba on the right a little bit, you know, drifting over to the left, handling the possession in the middle.
And he had 2 strikers on in front of him, right?
Yeah, and
at the end of the game,
yeah, you know, obviously it's against a DC United side, but I think that's how you want to see him, is roam a little bit, find the spaces, because that's really part of the thing, is that some of these players were handcuffed by they almost like, you know, I think Saba, when he plays on one side or the other, he limits himself in how he operates. And he thinks, like, there's only one way that I can go. No. I mean, like, you should drift over to another side. And if, you know, the players around you are aware enough to, you know, positionally take up that space, so that's, yes, you know, basically everybody shifts. And then you don't have as many, like, yeah, you know, Saba can be very productive on the right. And, you know, when he's shooting, when he's cutting in, shooting on his left even at times, you know, we've seen him be effective. And that's kind of the issue, is that some of these players are like rooted into their position instead of being a little bit more fluid, especially when, yeah, it's like, you know, some of these players have the ability to track back, you know, quickly enough to be able to, you know, mitigate those issues. Now, it is a matter of, yes, do you have the safety valve in the back to allow yourself to pretty much, you know, play that freely? That is maybe some of the problems that we had. But I think if Tata Martino is in, I think I feel a lot more at ease that he can identify those players and, you know, really get the type of guy in to be able to solve that issue. And let's be real. Okay, yes, Sergio Busquets, you know, one of the best, if not the best defensive midfielder ever, not blessed with pace, not exactly a safety valve, but a guy that, yeah, you're just so positionally aware that he can stamp out any counterattack, at least, most of them anyway in his heyday, and even still a little bit now, without having to have, the blessing of pace. So I think it's, if it is a Tata, if it is someone of that regard, I definitely feel a lot better for it. But
yeah,
go ahead.
I think I was told a story once by one of the reporters close to the team who has been covering the team since 17 and 18. And the story was, for 2 years in training under Tata, they didn't do anything but work on build out. That's what they did for 2 years in training. And they worked on build out under different situations. But the attacking sequences we're going to let them figure it out once we are successful in build out. And, obviously, I don't think that person would lie to us about that. However, that's an interesting way to go about training. And that sounds like exactly what this team needs right now, is to not make those boneheaded mistakes, not passing the ball to the other team. And like we get to zone 14, the Pep Guardiola primary assist zone, and we look great until we get there. And then, oh my God, we have no idea what to do anymore. Like the dreaded U of death from the Gonzo Pineda days. And that sounds like something this team needs right now, to be honest, is that kind of training.
Yeah.
And because I still think if you get Miggy in the middle with some runners around him and play a more counterattacking, more transition-based style, possession's not all of it. Like we don't need 60% of the ball every game. But if you do really well with 52, 53% of the ball and you attack and transition very well, you're good in space, good on the dribble, in the attack, I think that would be something the fans would want to watch, and I think that might suit some of the players on this team.
Yeah, and so with any coach, these are still the same problems, though. I think you've astutely identified that. Yeah, okay, some teams, they need 1 or 2 years to, kind of set that foundation, and you can't become good at everything within a calendar year. That's just really almost impossible. And so it is that, it's like the teams that have been afforded growth have been able to essentially, be able to grow the bits that they need to, defensively, possession, and then, possibly, playing through the lines, playing on the counter. Playing on the counter probably is the maybe easiest thing to do because it's direct. It's, you're bypassing lines, but also pressing, incredibly difficult to do well. A lot of teams do it, but not to any degree that's, you basically, a lot of teams get played around and they're sliced open because essentially 2 of their lines have been exposed, and there it is. Their back line's breached. So, you don't build Rome in a day, and I think that's really part of the issue and part of my frustration with having a carousel of coaches, because it really, how do you set the team in a way to succeed if everybody is pretty much in and out, and you have good players that gone. But that's really where academy players is super, super important. And the fact that we've grown these players and then sold them away without really, testing them on this team when we are in dire straits is baffling, because that essentially was our strategy. This, this summer transfer window was to still go for it. Still try to get into the playoffs. At that point, it was foolhardy.
And that the academy kids, it's a great point you brought up. That's something I do want to give Garth credit for. And obviously the academy kids take time. Like, Caleb Wiley was a ball boy at Bobby Dodd on March 7th, 2017, or whatever the date was. But it takes time. Those kids have to get old and mature and then be ready. But before Garth showed up, you could count on one hand, maybe with just a couple fingers, the amount of academy kids who had made a real impact. And under Dr. Javier Perez, the new academy director, especially, it has taken a turn for the better. Like, you've got someone in every line of the field who came up through the twos and maybe even,
Mm.
lower than that, that had a real impact this season. I mean, you got Jaden Hibbert, and don't forget how great Matt Edwards was to start the year, even though he missed a lot of time at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't forget about how great Jay Fortune was. Like, Luke Brennan went to the U20 World Cup and
Mm-hmm.
had 3-4 assists in several games and was starting on the right, and has looked good for Atlanta United. He needs to add some of that finishing product, and that's been a complaint of lots of folks who watch the twos, more so than both you and I do. But
Mm-hmm.
you have someone in every line of the field there that can make a tangible impact for next year, and that's a way I want to see this club go and continue to kind of use those homegrown players. Because then, if you can do that, if you can get 2,000 minutes out of Jay Fortune,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get 1,000 minutes out of Luke Brennan, maybe he's your first guy off the bench, then you don't have to pay Jean De Silva $500K to do that.
Yeah.
Because Luke Brennan's doing that for no salary cap hit. Then you can go and have more of the max TAM, the higher TAM guys. You can spend TAM money on Jamal Tiare to be your backup, because I think he's a fine backup striker.
Yeah.
Like, that allows you so many other things to do in the mechanism of your senior roster, is those guys on the homegrown deals and on the vet minimums, and that's something I want to see us do a little more of too. Great point.
Yeah. And, we'll come to a stopping point, I think, very shortly here. But
Yeah, sounds good.
I think what team says in this chat, that's why no Tata regarding the academy kids. He's saying that he's not into the academy kids, I believe. He says KEESS. I assume keys. Yeah, whatever. But either way, and Brett Mendel says, I love Luke Brennan, but he's a backup on a championship team. And it's
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's cool. 1,000 minutes, 1,500 minutes off the bench.
Right. And
It's a great
I
role
think,
for him.
that's the thing that, Chris Henderson was trying to build was, that mixture of MLS 2.0 and also a bit of kind of, a little bit of a kind of building through the academy in a sense. Because he was trying to bring in some kids. He was trying to, you saw the mixture of, a lot of older vets and, some prospects, then also some homegrowns.
Yeah.
And, I think that's that kind of full system that you're trying to do, whether if it is a Tata. And we'll end on this, and I'll ask you your thoughts on if it is. If it is a Tata, would the conversation be a little bit more like, hey, can you help us build, a kind of Ajax, Barcelona kind of system that, builds from within versus, if you're going to have, if you're going to hire mercenaries, you're going to have a team that, doesn't really care about the actual club because they don't know that much about it. Yes, early in our years in the inaugural season and all that, they were not academy players and whatnot, and larger part you see the likes of Miles Robinson, Andrew Carlton, not really integrated into the side. But it's these things. It was different though, because obviously they felt part of something that was growing, that was building from scratch. So that's a different story than, say, 5 years later, 8 years later, 9 years later, when you're joining this already established thing that you still have no idea what it's really all about.
Yeah, and don't forget when Tata needed Miles Robinson to start a do or die playoff game against New York City at the Benz, he was able to do that. And even though he'd only played a couple hundred minutes that year, he was able to do that and looked really great.
Exactly.
Not to say that Tata hates young players or anything, but it happens. Anyways, I'm sorry. Continue.
I think that's great. It's that's exactly it. Is the thing is that it's not that he won't play the kids, but he will play the players that are ready. And if you're good enough, you're old enough. And so, Miles Robinson, obviously defensively at that point, was good enough. It was just a question of, him on the ball, well, not yet. And we saw how much he developed in the subsequent years, where now he's absolutely, MLS best 11 quality for multiple years. And so, it's something that, I think he could implement. I think that has to be part of the equation. he has to help us build more of a foundation in order for us to be able to succeed. Maybe bring in kind of a coach that he's trying to mentor a little bit, maybe the next guy, and maybe that guy is our future, head coach that maybe coaches us for half a decade and then moves on. But half a decade of some stability sounds damn good to me at this moment. So
Exactly.
it's definitely, I think at this point, whether whoever it is, Ronny Deila is out. Final thoughts on Dila and his tenure here.
Well, and I'll have some more thoughts and stats and numbers and stuff going up on the Patreon in a couple hours as I'm able throughout the day. But we just never really saw what we thought we were going to see out of this. It never materialized, and it never really improved, other than Enya Mihai and Juan Barakal being better than Luis Abram and Derek Williams at center back. Being just moderately competent helped a lot. But by that point, it was too little too late. The attackers were healthy the whole season for the most part, and we never really saw what we thought they could do. You got to get the right coach in here to fix this, and you got to fix the roster to fix this. And if Tata's the best guy to come in, Tata's the best guy to come in. If he's not, he's not. So
yeah,
I think we'll just wait and see. But make sure you join the Atlanta United Fan TV Discord. Talk with us. Get at us every day, and we're always chatting in there. Conversation's always great. Get at us. If we hear something's going to happen, we put it there first and tell you what we think first. And yeah, go to Patreon and get at us there, and we'll see you guys throughout the offseason. We're not going away. So, I mean, clearly we're here on noon on a Sunday. So we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. I love you're doing a little bit of my job for me, so I love it, and I appreciate that.
That would help.
Yeah, and I think with that, if you're here on noon on Sunday, obviously you care about LA United, and so much more power to you. I mean, I think you can say that you were here through the thick and thin, really and truly, because it is there is an aspect of this that I put out there. Mike has kind of alluded to a little bit in the Discord as well. That's the fact that you were able to survive this season is incredible. And some people were actually saying like, what, like, are you guys like, did you survive like being a crackhead or something? Like, what? Why would you say it like that? But I mean, let's just be real. Like, do you not feel shell shocked like from this entire season? It's the fact that we're here and alive, kicking, and still able to talk about this team with this much fervor, I think speaks to something. And I haven't identified it yet, but it's incredible. But yeah, so I think it's the MLS sickos in us, it's the LA United sicko in all of us. But either way, yeah, guys, remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We love you. We'll see you in the next videos. But that's been Nick. I've been AJ. Adios.